Ticket prices are up again. The hostile takeover threat of the Disney company is back, and we've got new news on Disneyland Forward. Let's go. And on that ticket price point, at least they waited a whole year before raising prices again. Exactly a year, actually. It was on this date, 1 year ago, October 11th, that Disney raised their ticket prices last. And I make that distinction because that isn't always the case. There have been instances in the past where they have raised their prices shy of a year, 9 months after the previous increase, for example. But I feel like this is some sort of subtle hint that maybe Disney is being super hyper aware of how long it's been and what the optics that might be of a price increase right now, which it's not good. Price increases right now in the current state of things for Disney is not good. So it feels like they've been waiting, they've been watching, and they're like, come on, October 11th, let's go. It's been a year, prices are up. But the reality is, of course, that ticket prices are, in fact, a yearly tradition, have been for as long as that I've been covering the Disney company, and probably longer than that even. Now, as for this year's increases, they range from nominal to that's a technical term, We'll start with single-day ticket prices where there are currently 7 tiers in the flex pricing system. Tier 0, the lowest tier, remains at $104. That's a $0 increase. They haven't increased this ticket in quite a while, a few years. I want to say 3 or 4 years now, so that's a good start. Tiers 1 and 2 are up $5, nominal, a near 4% increase, and just about meeting the national inflation rate. Real quick, I mentioned the national inflation rate because that is usually the measuring stick, the benchmark to determine just how normal these price increases are. Prices go up everywhere for everything. That's a known fact. But we use that inflation rate to determine if this is the normal increase type situation, or if Disney, anything above that national inflation rate would suggest that they're doing it just to make money, just for profit, or maybe they're taking advantage of a shortage in supply versus the supply-demand relationship. You can keep raising prices beyond inflation if there's significant demand. And that's what's happening with tiers 3 through 6. They're seeing increases of $10 and $15 per ticket, or between 6.3% and 8.4% increases. We are now, at this point, outpacing inflation. And by the way, that's not news either. Disney has been outpacing inflation for quite a while now. This has been an ongoing situation for a good solid 10 years or so at least. Continuing, similar changes to multi-day tickets with increases between $25 and $65 per day, ranging between 8.8% and 15.7%. By the way, I forgot to mention, what is that national inflation rate? Well, since August of last year, over the past year, inflation on the national average was 3.7%. So that's kind of wow compared to the 8% and the 15% we're seeing right now. Genie Plus is also going up. Presently, it's selling for $25 a day. It's going to go up another $5 to $30 per day. That's a 20% increase. And that's only if you buy it in advance. If you wait to buy it on the day of your visit, you are now subject to demand pricing, flex pricing. Whatever demand is for that day, the price will be based on that, and it's going to start at $30. Now, having said that, I don't expect Genie Plus prices here at Disneyland to go beyond that $30 very often, if at all, because demand here for Genie Plus is pretty much nil, it seems like. I mean, there isn't a lot of demand for Genie Plus here. Now, things get a little more interesting when we start talking about Magic Keys. Imagine is up $50 from $449 to $499. That's a 3.1% increase. Well done. Enchant is up triple that, $150. Wow. From $699 to $849, that's a 21.5% increase. Good gravy. Believe is also up $150 from $10.99 to $12.49. Now, because it's at a higher price, the percentage increase is lower, but still very high at 13.6%. And Inspire, just like Imagine, though, this is interesting. Inspire is up just $50 from $15.99. I say just compared to the $150 for the other two. From $15.99 to $16.49. Like Imagine, that is a 3.1% increase. That's actually less than the national inflation rate. Lessons are very easy to spot here. They want you to buy the Inspire key. The goal is for you to buy the Inspire key. That is when they eventually start selling them again, because they still are not selling magic keys. These prices are just for currently, for those who are going to renew. Now, having said that, the fact that they're increasing prices in such a way here suggests to me 100% they are absolutely going to be selling these again. Just not presently, but they will be selling these again. My guess is probably the new year, January or February. And when that happens, they really want you to buy the Inspire key. And if you're not trying to buy that top tier key, if you're not interested in buying that top tier key, they want you to buy the very bottom tier key. They want you to buy the Imagine key. So it's on a bell curve, it's Inspire, Imagine are up here, Believe, and Enchant are down here. And as much as they want you to buy the Inspire key, they don't want you to buy the Enchant key. The steep price increases on these, $150, tells me that they feel like the Enchant and the Believe key are the least valuable to Disney and their bottom line, that they're not getting enough money out of you, they're not getting enough value out of you as a guest on those two keys. They are, Enchant and Believe, the unfavorable mix, if you will. And this is especially true for the relationship between Believe and Inspire. As that gap closes, it becomes less and less reasonable to buy the Believe key. Where the gap was $500 between Believe and Inspire, it is now just $400. That's a significant change. And it makes it more likely, it makes it more reasonable to go ahead and just make the jump from Believe to Inspire. They want to convert Believes into Inspires, and then they want to convert Enchants into either Imagines going down or all the way up to Inspires. So those are my thoughts, Fresh Baked. What say you? And I know that there's going to be some not so happy comments about this. It's a yearly tradition. The price increases are yearly tradition. So too is the levels of upset that we hear in social media, etc., about those price increases. Now, I used to defend them pretty vigorously, actually. I was all about defending Disney on price increases. Because it's just a part of business. Prices go up, and they go up on a yearly basis, just like this. And two, because I always felt like even if they kept raising the prices, that it was still a very good value. That Disneyland is still a very good value, and that was especially true back then. I still believe it today. Disneyland is still an exceptional value. I just wish that it didn't have to be this way. I wish that they could find a way to keep things more in line with, let's say, the national inflation rate. I say that because I want more people. I want more people to be capable, to be able to go to Disneyland. I want you to go to. I want everybody to go to Disneyland. With that, we'll leave that conversation, segue into another interesting story about the Disney company and finances. Have you heard of Nelson Peltz? You may recall that there was an attempt, a proxy war, as they call it, a hostile takeover, if you will, by Nelson Peltz back in February. Well, actually, it ended back in February of 2023. He did it by buying so much Disney stock, that it would force them to give him, he would demand a seat, a chair on the board of directors. And that would give Nelson the ability to have an impact, to change Disney's executive structure, how they do business even. As I mentioned, he tried once before. That bid ended back in February. And at that time, he had accumulated 9.4 million shares of stock, valued at about $900 million. And his main complaints then were the purchase of Fox. He objected to spending $71 billion on buying the Fox network, and also the failed succession plans. When Bob Iger was rehired to become the CEO of Disney, he was supposed to immediately begin. He was just there as a stopgap to bridge the gap between Chapek, who needed to be fired, and whomever was going to replace him. Iger there was just to be as a transition, and he was supposed to engage immediately on a succession plan, which is what he said he was going to do. But that bid ended in February of 2023 when Disney sort of acquiesced to some of his demands. That's when they announced that they're going to cut 7,000 jobs and they're going to trim, $5.5 billion off the budget. That held him off for a little while, but it now looks like he has re-upped his bid, his proxy war on Disney. He's re-upped his desire to take over the Disney company, as it were. Since February, he has increased his ownership stake in the Disney company from that 9.4 million shares to 30 million shares. He has purchased 20 million shares of Disney stock since February. That $900 million stake is now a $2.5 billion investment in the Disney company. That talks. He is now an unavoidable figure, and the idea, the prospect of a hostile takeover is now back on. With that stake, he wants not just a seat now, but multiple seats, one for him and whom I don't know who else. He wants multiple seats on the board of directors, and he wants to shake up. He wants to upset the current executive makeup, and that means specifically Bob Iger. He wants to get rid of Bob Iger. He's upset that Bob Iger re-upped himself for another 2 years instead of following through on that succession plan. He's upset on how they spend, or rather how much they waste. A lot of money they've been wasting. Overspending on tentpole films like The Little Mermaid, Indiana Jones, and even Marvel's Secret Invasion. That cost over $200 million. Parks 2, Harmonious, for example. And then, of course, Fox. And then, of course, Fox, as we've already discussed. The Fox purchase is going to be, it has been, and will continue to be, an albatross around the neck of Disney for quite a while. And I mean, they may regret, well, they probably already do regret purchasing that company. And by the way, their desire to purchase Fox was a result of their desire to build a streaming service, Disney Plus. They felt like they couldn't launch Disney Plus on just the library that Disney had alone. They needed more titles, more IPs in order to push those on the Disney Plus. That's a hell of an investment for a thing that still Disney Plus is not crushing right now. I don't know how long it's going to be before they start making money, but we just talked about Secret Invasion. They spent $200 million on Secret Invasion. Did it show up on the screen? I don't know. I didn't watch Secret Invasion. I suppose I should. But there it is. It's just they're spending so much money that they're not being fiscally responsible, as per Nelson Peltz, that is. I say that because I know that his concerns are concerns that a lot of fans out there feel. A lot of fans feel like that they just can't believe the spiraling budgets for films and the fact that they're not being very profitable. So this may sound like good news to a lot of Disney fans out there, but allow me to at least curb that enthusiasm for a possible takeover. Some people they're just sharks in the water. But there's no guarantee that the new blood, whoever Peltz brings in, or Peltz himself, would be any better than the old blood. And by that I mean, I think most of us ideally want somebody who represents, the Disney way, who is part of the family, I guess. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but who gets Disney. And so it's not just about the bottom line. We've already had enough, I think, of people concerned only about the bottom line. I do feel like we got to find somebody who can do that and nurture and take care of the brand and the Disney way in a way that makes us feel good, because it's not just about being profitable. It's also about you got to start with the guest. By the guest I mean and also the viewer, the Disney films, etc. You got to start first there, and the product. That's where you got to start first if you want people to continue to support and open up their checkbooks, as it were, to the Disney company. It's not just about spending less money. Sounds simple though, right? It's easy to say, I want this. I want you to be perfectly Disney, but also be financially responsible. Let's do that. It sounds pretty easy and pretty simple, but it's probably not. So this is going to be an interesting story to follow. And with that, we'll wrap with news that the city of Anaheim recently held a meeting at City Hall to allow for public comments for people who are Anaheim residents who are affected by the Disneyland Forward plan, an opportunity for them to get a closer look at it and to publicly comment. This is the expansion plan, obviously Disneyland Forward, that we've been following for a couple of years now, where Disney wants to build park expansions in various parking lots around the resort. But they can't do it without city approval first, because those properties are not zoned for Disney to build on them. They're zoned only to be parking lots. So Disney needs approval from the city of Anaheim, and that approval vote is going to happen sometime, I believe, in early 2024, hopefully January or February. And part of that process, part of that voting process is, as I mentioned, the opportunity for residents of Anaheim who are affected by this, a chance for them to voice their support and or concerns about the project. And based on reports from Laughing Place, they actually went to this event. And based on reports from Laughing Place, the response was exactly that. It was mixed. It was positive and negative. The negative comments were primarily regarding Disney not giving enough back to the residents of Anaheim. For example, they're requesting more affordable housing. Now, I'm not sure if that's Disney's responsibility or not. I can't say. Maybe they're directing this at the city. Maybe the city is asking them to help build. I mean, they've done it. They did do something like that in Florida. They built a whole, or I think they are in the process of building almost the whole city. Another thing, I don't know if it's exactly like Celebration or not, but more housing in that area is being developed by Disney, not for park, but for housing. So that's interesting. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but another thing that came up were potential conflicts of interest among those who might be voting on the project. That was mentioned as well. I don't know how that works, to be honest. I feel like that's just part of life. I feel like that's everywhere and always, so I don't know how you get around that, but I digress. One of the other things that was done at this event was a workshop where Disney officials and I think city officials were presenting fact sheets, concept art, and references to the environmental review that we discussed in another video. Now, the concept art that I mentioned is of a parking structure, which is kind of it's pretty much the same as the Eastern Gateway. It's a different view, but it looks to me like the same thing as the Eastern Gateway. That's a project, if you'll recall, we talked about it in the other video as well. We've been talking about this for, 7 or 8 years, I think? I don't know. Eastern Gateway was a parking structure project that Disney had planned to build on the backside of the businesses. There's a parking lot behind those businesses on Harbor Boulevard. They were going to build a parking lot there. That didn't happen. That plan got canceled. And it was canceled because the small businesses on Harbor, objected to the parking structure because it would reroute their foot traffic that would go along Harbor Boulevard on their way to Disneyland. It would reroute those guests to behind the parking structure or to behind the businesses to that new parking structure. Instead of that foot traffic going down the street on Harbor, it would route them to the parking structure behind, and then they would cross over a bridge on Harbor, thus removing a significant portion of foot traffic off Harbor. That would have been pretty bad, I think. I would imagine that's going to be pretty bad for those small businesses on Harbor Boulevard. But Disneyland Forward cannot happen unless they build that parking structure. All the ideas and the concepts and the what ifs and all that, none of that can happen until they build a parking structure, because all of that expansion that they're talking about building is going to happen on 3 parking lots, which is all that leaves us with. If they were to build there, that includes the Toy Story lot. If they were to build there, that would leave only the Mickey and Friends parking structure and the Pixar Palace parking structure, which I don't think has the capacity to absorb all of that parking. The new plan submitted, as far as I can tell, does not appear to address how Disney and the city plan to offset the potential loss of business on Harbor Boulevard. At least it's not said overtly. It may be buried in there somewhere. It is discussed that there may be as many as 3 footbridges over Harbor. My assumption here is that those additional bridges are meant to encourage foot traffic on Harbor. And this is supported by other details noted in that report. That Disney is going to help the city widen neighboring streets, add more traffic signals and other improvements to the intersections, adding bike paths and bike parking around the resort. Again, this suggests to me that they're trying to encourage foot traffic, which means I believe that their solution, and this is something that I have been saying from the very beginning, the simplest answer, the solution is to not have bag check on the business side of Harbor Boulevard. Keep bag check where it is on the Disneyland side of Harbor Boulevard. The old plan was to have bag check on the opposite side of Harbor. Anyone who wanted to go to Disneyland from that side of the resort would have to start from the parking structure. And the reason, by the way, that they wanted to do that, the reason why they wanted to extend the bubble back behind those businesses at the parking structure was because they wanted to use that space currently today where they have bag check and where the buses drop guests off, where the Toy Story buses, pick up and drop off people. They wanted to use that space as expansion. They were going to push the Disney or the California Adventure border into that property, and that was going to become theme park. So you drop that idea, which, by the way, I think that's already been scrapped. That was scrapped along with a lot of things back when they canceled the hotel project. If you scrap those plans and leave bag check where it is now on Harbor or on the Disneyland side of Harbor Boulevard, then you can do whatever you want on the other side. It doesn't affect. You're actually going to increase the amount of foot traffic on Harbor Boulevard if you allow people to park there and also walk in from Harbor Boulevard. Let's say if you're staying at one of the hotels, etc. And I feel like that's a win for everyone. I mean, I'm rooting. I'm definitely rooting for Disney here because I want more theme park for my own selfish reasons. But I'm also rooting for small business. I'm a huge proponent of small business. I feel like small business is integral to any city and how they operate, to a successful city. Small business is really key. And so I want to support them. I want to support and for the city itself. It's more than, the city of Anaheim is more than just Disneyland. People actually do live and operate there. It's not the same. It's just not the same as it is, let's say, at Walt Disney World, where they have their own little ecosystem. There's a whole urban city happening around the Disney Resort. So I feel like it is incumbent upon Disney to make sure that they take care of that. What do you guys think? I mean, doesn't it feel like this is, now it seems more clear to me than ever, but it wasn't really a major component. We were all just talking about what the what ifs, what they could do. But doesn't it feel like this entire thing is now pivoting around this parking structure? They have to solve the parking riddle before they can do any of this. How far should the city of Anaheim go to protect small business? How far should the city of Anaheim go to accommodate the Disney company, knowing what they mean financially to the success of the city overall? It's quite a relationship there. Is there perhaps maybe even an out of the box solution to all this? I think about it. And we can talk about this some more on social media, guys. We can talk about this on Instagram at _freshbaked. We can talk about it on X at freshbakedisney. That's fresh with no E. And we're also on TikTok, of course, at freshbakedisney. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh baked.